Hello students, welcome to my channel English with Terry. In today's video I want to share something really cool, really special. It is my magical vocabulary memorization technique. Now actually, to be honest, it's not original to me. I learned this in a book by Dominic O'Brien, the previous world memory champion. And my mother had this book in her attic and I found it, I think I was 15 or 16. And I have been using this technique for years to learn new languages. And in this video, I want to show you the simple technique, the simple vocabulary memorization technique with 3 examples of languages that I learn and I study. So let's go! The way this technique works, it's the same basic principle that we have 2 sides of our brain. And the 2 sides do different things. For example, using the left side can think more about mathematics, logic, and sort of sequences, and the right side is more about images, imagination, creativity, and visualizing. Now, when we are sitting and trying to remember a vocabulary list, we're just writing the list and just not there. We're only using one side of the brain. We're trying to memorize words, almost trying to force the words inside and repeat and repeat. But if we can learn to use both sides of the brain, and that's when this technique really works. Now, the idea here is about the right-hand side of the brain is responsible for remembering images. We can remember easier, faster, and better images, things that we can create in our imagination or things we saw. So I want to give you examples of 3 languages I am learning: Hungarian, Dutch, and Portuguese. I want to give you 3 examples. One is barátom, which means my friend in Hungarian, belangrijk, which means important in Dutch, and colocar, which means to put in Portuguese. Sorry, it's a Brazilian flag. I learned Brazilian Portuguese. Sorry, Portuguese friends. So let's start with the first one, barátom, which is my friend. Now I really like Hungarian because I really like Hungarians. But my business coach is Hungarian, so when I have meetings with her, I always learn a new word. And this was one word I learned with her. Well, for her. Barátom. Step 1. Take the word and separate the syllables. So in this case, I took the words into bar and atom. Barátom. Now strictly it might be barátom, but in this case I divide it into 2 parts. Barátom. Now, I find images in my first language. In this case, my first language is English because I come from Ireland. So I find words or images in my language that rhyme, have the same sound, or remind me of the word. So for example, with the word bar, the connection to me, I say the word bar, and I think chocolate bar. So I start to imagine a chocolate bar. I think of atom, I think of atomic material. Okay? The next step is to create a phrase or sentence that helps you remember the words and images. In this case, my friend is eating a chocolate bar of atoms. I know this is really strange and unusual, but stay with me. Remember the word in your language and create a location in your mind. Now, in this case, that means, for example, my friend. I can always remember the word in English. I can always remember. But the moment I think in English, I connect it to a place. Now, I have been to Budapest, but I always start to connect with the places I remember in Hungary or connect on a map. I connect with a place and a location. And then I think of my friend. I immediately visualize Susanna in her home eating the chocolate bar out of atoms. In that moment, I think about her, I create the image. I can see the image. I visualize Susanna in her home eating a chocolate bar from atomic material. Now it's about creating the movie scene in your mind so that you can see an interaction between the elements of the word. So you can remember the word in your language. I can remember my friend. I can start to see the location. I can remember I'm always doing a business chat on Skype with my business coach, so I can see her house and I imagine it, and I make the elements interact with each other. For example, she is physically eating a chocolate bar of atoms. Now, if I can create that scene, I can create that image in my mind, The moment I try to remember, what is my friend in Hungarian? Like you are always thinking, oh, what is this word in English? I forget. But in this case, I remember, what is the word in Hungarian? In this case, I remember, what is the word in English? I remember, my friend. So now I start to see the location, I see the images interacting. The images are there to help you remember the syllables of the word. The little images, the information, help you rhyme and remember the word. Bar is chocolate bar. Atom is an atomic material. This is my business coach, Servus. So in this case, I must almost just close my eyes, visualize the scene, and I must see Susanna sitting on her couch eating a chocolate bar of atoms. See, the final step is you can always remember the word in your first language. My first language is English, so I can always remember my friend in English. And when I want to remember, I see the images and the movie scene. And then the moment when I want to remember, I can see the images and I start to remember, make the connections and start to, okay, baratum, right? The phrase helps me remember. A little sentence or phrase, for example, my friend in Hungary is eating a chocolate bar of atoms. And that little phrase, that mnemonic phrase that has the images and the syllables to help me remember. Remember a location you know really well. It could be your home or your old school. Because in the moment that you want to visualize in a place that you know really well. A place you know so well, you can just close your eyes. And for example, in my home, my parents' home, or my old school, primary school, secondary school, I can close my eyes and go there. And that's why sometimes if you're learning nouns or words or verbs, you can put the movie scene in a location you know really, really well. Because when you remember the word or the meaning, what is the first location you associate this with? For example, apple. When you think about the word apple, what is apple in your language? If you stop, close your eyes and repeat apple in your language, you will have a mental association. There's the first moment that you saw an apple and connected the word. So that's why the location is important about seeing it in your first language in a place you know really well. Now, when you are doing this technique about you making the phrase, connecting the images, usually the first time you really need it, the second time you really need it, but the third or fourth time you already memorize it. So for example, baratum or belangrijk in Dutch, I already remember it. I used the technique, but now I just memorized it in my subconscious and I never forget it. So if that's your question, like, do I need to do this every time to remember a word? No, generally after 3-4 times of using your phrase, you memorize the word and you can continue to learn new words. Let's look at Dutch. Now, I want to show you just my process or my way of doing it. So let's look at this word. This word here, belangrijk. If you are Dutch, please tell me how is my accent? I don't know, I don't practice much when I can. But belangrijk, this is an example of a word. It's really different to English. There's no connection, there's nothing similar. I mean, the word in English or French, important, is similar, but in English and Dutch, that's just completely different. So now, how do I memorize all these words? So, step by step, you take the word and separate the syllables. Belangrijk. Okay? I separate the syllables, and then I find images or words in my language that rhyme or remind me of the word. For example, when you're doing this process, if you separate the syllables and you repeat the syllables, be, and you start to think of an association, be. So be is better, lang sounds like land, and reich sounds a little bit like the word right, but with a K. Do you know what I mean? So now, when you separate the syllables, start to create some images, and this is an example of a word where I needed to be very creative to remember it. So the word is important. And remember, I can always remember important in English, in my language. I say, if it's important, you better land right on the K. Okay, let me explain that. So the word land, it can mean like physical land, but also an airplane landing, right? You see this guy here with the thing falling out of the sky? This is a parachute. And he's falling, right? But I had created this image, or the sentence I had was, if it's important, you better land right on the K. So I created an image in my head that I am that person in the parachute coming out of a plane, falling down, and I can see the Netherlands and I can see the K. And I really remember this in this image way, right? Now, when you remember the word in your language, create a location in your mind. In this case, I'm putting all of the locations in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, because I have been there before. I've been there 2 times. But I'm creating that sort of location image connection. Now it's about creating the movie scene in your mind. In this case, it's better land right on the K. And that moment when I want to remember, I see myself jumping out of an airplane, falling through the sky, looking at Amsterdam, looking at the big K. I create the scene and I live it. And then when I want to remember, I just remember the movie scene. Does this make sense? So you remember the word in your language, see the location, and make the elements or images interact. I see and feel myself falling from an airplane to land in the Netherlands. I feel it, I see it, and I imagine it. And I create visual connections with the vocabulary, because in the moment when I try to remember, my memory is better to remember images and scenes and a sort of visual portrait or a visual picture than just writing vocabulary, the word and the translation, and that's it, okay? So I can always remember in my first language, and when I want to remember, I see the images and the movie scene, okay? The phrase helps me remember. And if it's a funny phrase, it really helps. If it's important, you better land right on the K. That's completely bizarre and weird, but it helps me remember. Final example is from Portuguese. When I was 18 or 19, I did not go to university. I started working in a hotel in my town in Ireland. And I was one Irish guy with 8 Brazilians. So I was a little bit bored cleaning, working in a hotel, so I started learning Portuguese. One verb I learned was colocar. Now, this means to put, in the idea of like put something, take a object and put it in a place, on a table or something. And here we have this was the location. And the location was very important in this memorization because I was working with Brazilians, cleaning in a hotel, cleaning in the kitchen. Now, this is the best photo I could find. This is not a professional kitchen, but can you see the big images there, like the big pots and the part you remove and you have to clean it? That was my job. But with the verb colocar, I started to kind of make the connection between cola, like Coca-Cola, and car. Colocar, right? Start making that sort of rhyme and connection. Coca-Cola, car. And I started to imagine this Coca-Cola car, right? So one of the things I was doing was, if you can see the image of the kitchen, I was removing the big parts, cleaning them with water, and then putting them back where they were. I was learning the verb colocar. But when I was creating this image, I was visualizing it in the same place I was working. I was working there for almost 4 years. It was extremely familiar. I still know the place really, really well, but I can stop, close my eyes, and see the place. So, put the colocar on the cooker. Now, the cooker is this part here with the big metal device. That's what we call a cooker. But I was always thinking, put the colocar on the cooker. It's like, how do I remember the verb to put in Portuguese? Put the colocar on the cooker, right? Separate the syllables of the word, connect images to syllables of words in your language, and create a mental movie scene with a phrase and location that helps you remember. Okay? This was my magical vocabulary memorization technique. It's a little bit different to what Dominic O'Brien teaches in his book, but I really recommend you try it. I have been doing this for years with great success. I'm a polyglot, I can speak 5 languages. Please write in the comments your examples or ideas, or what do you think? Is this too difficult? Would you like a simpler video or any of that there? Okay, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching my videos. I work very hard to make these videos for you guys. I hope you enjoy them. Please click like and subscribe, and if you really like the video, you can share it with your friends. Because if you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more, please subscribe to see more videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.